I thought I'd start this video filming in the tidy corner of my shed, and for those of you that haven't seen my channel before, this is tidy. My name's Chris, welcome to the channel. It's middle of the week, which means it's one item out of the emergency storage shed time. We're doing a scrap run Friday. I'm just rounding up a bit more copper and brass, so let's get a drum of maybe some scrap out of the emergency storage shed. And there's a big steel box there that I'm just been so curious to see what's in, because I don't know, and we might just lift the lid and have a peek. I've had lots joining my channel lately, and welcome everyone. This shed of mine is at my home, and it got enormously cluttered, more than usual, because I had to empty my old shop and my backyard and shipping containers and storage sheds, and I had to empty them all in a hurry. So if you want to see what that was all about, look at my playlist for the Great Backyard Cleanup, which finished last year. There's a bucket of scrap here, or I don't know, I think it's scrap. It's all sorts of stuff. I did pull a couple of pieces of copper pipe out of it just before, but we might as well go through it and see what we can do with everything. Obviously this hammer here isn't scrap, that'll be saleable, so we might get a bit of value out of there as well as some scrap metal. And this box here, I took those of you that have been following will remember I took the valve refacing machine off the top of that the other week, and I've been walking past this, it was only last week actually, and I've been walking past this every day. It's just in the doorway. I'll show you how little room I've got here. I'm now outside, and I can't for the life of me remember what's in it. I don't know if it's old tools, I don't know if it's good stuff. I kind of need to check just in case I'd put brass or copper in there, and we are doing that run Friday. So let's have a peek. I probably won't unbox this today, but I'll have to move this bucket. Hang on. Oh, and that's heavy too. There's possibly scrap metal in that bucket. Let's hope it doesn't fall. Right, let's have a peek in this trunk. It's a nice old tin trunk. And, okay. Not a great deal, but an early set of scales. Looks like some blacksmith tools. There's something else I might use in one of my upcoming mystery object videos. Okay, we'll get to that trunk next week. And there's another big steel trunk underneath it, a bit more modern. We need to get that out of the road so that we're starting to make a little bit easier access into my main shed. Anyway, let's get this one bucket down here. We'll see what we've got in this bucket, and then we'll see how our time's going. We might do something else. Okay, we did have a little bit of a scrap-a-lanch. This bucket was supporting other things, so perhaps this wasn't the best choice. But we need to go through this because we might get some more copper and brass, and who knows what else. Okay, we're probably going to need our magnet just to see what sort of stuff we pull out, whether it is brass or copper. And for those who are new to my channel, I've done a lot of scrapping, and I had a lot of stuff in the backyard at the shop. That's brass, that's not. We'll make a pile for what we have to separate. And I sold a lot of it last year when we had to move, but all sorts of stuff got moved home here, including boxes of assorted things that I hadn't quite got to yet. Just an old double adapter. It's not any good to give to someone to use. It's an older style. It's possibly unsafe. I usually just get the brass pins out of those pretty quickly. I might set a few of these aside until we get a big enough pile, and then we might do some sort of time trial to see how much we can make out of scrapping double adapters. Here's a bit of copper. It looks like it's off an old air conditioner or something. I don't know if those screws will be copper, so I'll have to just check that. Oh, we did have a hammer. Now I've got a headless hammer. Oh, that's nice. Now I'm not sure what sort of hammer that would be. I don't think I've seen one with such a long point on it before. It looks like either a cobbler's hammer for shoes. I don't think it's like panel beating. I don't know. Let me know if you know what sort of hammer that is. We will attach the handle a bit more securely, and we'll sell that hammer through the shop. I'm not sure what it's worth. It's certainly unusual, so I might just buff up the head of it before I attach it. And I reckon we'd probably go something like $20 for that. As with all my videos, I will give a list at the end of the video of what value we get. Now that's some sort of heavy switch. Could be a control from an oven. It's not really worth scrapping out. There's possibly going to be silver contacts in that, but I don't really have time to micro scrap at the moment. So we might just put that in the e-waste bucket. It's really, there's not going to be any more than a few cents worth of value in here. So straight to the e-waste. Aha, just as well I did get into this bucket. A nice brass plumbing elbow. It's clean brass all this end. It does have a steel piece of pipe that's been cut off, so we will have to cut that out. But yes, I've got a brass bucket ready to go for Friday. We probably don't need all the vegetation. All right, so I'll clean that up. Okay, this looks like copper wire. Just been spooled around a piece of timber. Sometimes it's galvanized. I would say that's certainly copper. And copper wire is really easy to pick. It bends very easily, and the moment you bend it once, it goes pink on the bend. Definitely copper wire. So we'll put that in our bucket. I'm not sure if I'm taking our burnt copper wire this trip. Probably not. I might just stick with brass and copper pipes. That's part of a sprayer. It's the boom arm from a sprayer, I would say. It's all brass. You can go straight in our brass bin. And this looks like some part of an early light. Oh, it's an insulator, I think. Some sort of early electrical insulator. The top part is all brass, although it's got a steel bolt there, which will have to come out. And I don't know how this ceramic piece comes out. We might have to hit that with a hammer. But there's a good solid chunk of brass there. I think that's worth cleaning up. And another one. So the remains of the porcelain, whatever it was, is still in there. I'm not really sure what these were from. It looks like some sort of giant insulator contact or something. Again, there's a steel screw there we've got to get out. The rest appears to be brass. And we have a telescopic laundry trough outlet, water outlet. I don't know that it's worth trying to sell. It weighs quite a bit. I think we'll just slice this rubber piece off and it can go in our brass bin. I do prefer to sell items if I can instead of scrapping them, but because I'm going this Friday and it's marginal as to what value I could get for it, we're going to scrap it. This is a piece of copper pipe soldered to a brass fitting. I'm pretty sure it's brass. Yep, it would be. If you're unsure of your metals, touch them with a grinder or rub a file over them. It's pretty easy to pick. I'm just going to run a quick hacksaw through there, and that can go in our number 2 copper, which is paying over $10 a kilo at the moment, I think. And this part can go in the brass. We could nearly throw the whole lot in the brass because they will certainly accept copper in your brass bin, but they won't accept brass in your copper bin. So we'll just cut through that quickly and value add there. A large bronze bush of some sort. It's bronze, brass. I think it can all go in the one bin. Basically, all they're trying to do is get the copper back out of it. And bronze possibly has a higher copper percentage than brass actually does. Here's a solenoid valve on a copper pipe. I think this is out of an air conditioner again. There's copper pipes, but they've got soldered joins in them. There's a bracket there that's probably steel. Yes, it is. This part appears to have, it's brass on the outside, but it appears to have some ferrous material inside. It's quite strong, actually. I think that whole lot could probably just go in the dirty brass. It's not worth trying to micro scrap that down, I don't think. Dirty brass, I have a bucket of that ready to go. An old shower rose where the top has been broken off. It was soldered. That will almost certainly be brass. Let me quickly go and get my grinder. Now here we go, probably the quickest and easiest way when you're sorting metals. And that's definitely, you can see the yellow, if we can get a focus on that. You can see the yellow of the brass underneath the chrome. And on the rim, I think I touched it as well. I could see very, very tiny sparks come off when I ground it. Now that will be from the chrome plating. If you're trying to pick stainless steel from brass, stainless steel will spark a little bit. Brass shouldn't spark at all, but it can be a bit confusing when you've got something that's actually heavily chromed. You can sometimes get a few faint sparks, but the base metal on that's definitely brass, so that can go in our brass bin. Just a solid piece of brass rod. A piece of aluminium. I'm not taking any aluminium this time, but I do have a tub for it. And we have a piece of aluminium tubing there. And another piece of tubing that I suspect is brass. We better just check that. You can pick the aluminium really easily from the weight, and even the sound of it on the bench, it sounds like aluminium. Let's check this one. Definitely brass there. I don't think there's any steel inside it. Sometimes, there's steel at end. That's interesting. Sometimes they do have a heavy brass tube over a steel rod. So it's only that end. I think we might just quickly hacksaw that off. Then we have mostly good brass, and a little bit of here can go in our dirty brass or irony brass. Here we have a chainsaw file, which is handy as well for checking if you've got brass or copper. And looks like part of an old car radio antenna. In fact, it's the complete antenna. These are often brass, but sometimes they do have ferrous material in them, and it is slightly magnetic. The spring is definitely magnetic, and the bottom's possibly even a die-cast alloy. So a bit of a mishmash of metals here. It's possibly even stainless steel. Let's see if we get a few sparks. Okay, interesting. That is stainless steel. It's silver there, it's not yellow, and there was a few more sparks than what we had before. But because it's all magnetic steel down here and stainless in the middle, I'm just going to put that in with the normal shred steel. It's not worth trying to separate that. Another laundry trough type water outlet, that will be all brass. Again, probably best just check with a magnet. Sometimes you can get a galvanized iron fitting on the end, but no, that'll be all brass. End off a sprayer, that will be brass as well. And a P-trap or a drain elbow from under an old basin. We have to get the gel pipe out, but this is definitely brass. A little bit of chain, which won't be, that will be magnetic for sure. I've got a bucket of chain here. I have to hang some more lights, so that will be handy. A little bit of pressed metal here. I don't know what this is from. It's most likely brass. It could be part of an old light shade assembly. It's fairly light. It looks rusty because it's been sitting next to steel that rusts. It's definitely brass. It's a nice yellow underneath. And another piece of the same. You can tell this is actually brass, but don't be fooled by rust on them, because if it's sitting next to something that's rusting, it will take on that look. But easiest way to tell, as I said, it's with a magnet. Definitely brass, that one. Well, this is a heavy piece, and I can tell you that that is from an early milk or cream separator. Well and truly rusted away. That would have been the shaft that it span around on. I'm not sure what this is made of. It has a bit of a brassish look to it. You can feel the magnetic attraction of the steel shaft inside through that part. You're never ever going to get that out. Well, you will, but what's the point of devoting half of your life to doing it? Definitely just going in the dirty brass, if indeed it's brass. Let's touch that with the grinder. Yes, that can go in our brass bin. It's actually got a pinker than the normal yellow look. It's probably classed as gunmetal, but we're going to put that in our irony brass or dirty brass because of the contamination. It weighs a fair bit though. A little sprayer here. These are very, very common, but because this one's actually not damaged, we'll probably just sell this in a shop. It's got a steel rod here. The cylinder will be brass and the reservoir will be brass, but they're fairly light because they're only light gauge, whereas I would get $10 for that in the shop just with a really quick wash up. It doesn't need to be polished. So that one's something to go into the shop. We'll get $10 for that. Okay, not much left in the bucket. In fact, let's tip it out. Okay, amongst the vegetation, we have some more bits of brass that's got a bolt in it. The bolt should come out okay there, and that's actually part of an old bed frame. They had the brass piece inside a piece of timber and the bolt screwed in from one end to hold the rails together. Good chunk of brass, worth getting that out. That's just a plumbing fitting there. That should be pretty much all brass. A bracket here could have been off an old window prop. It will be brass except for the rivets, so I will just cut them out with the grinder. Fair bit of brass here, it's quite thick. A tap fitting, or the remains of a tap, but we will have to get the steel piece out, the galvanised pipe piece. So just a few little bits of water pipe fittings, some brass, some have steel in them. I would imagine that, oh, that's a little clean brass nozzle. I'm thinking some of this was thrown in a bucket at the shop when I was doing a lot of cleaning up of scrap, and I probably would have said, all right, this bucket's full of stuff that I have to sort through and clean out and get the impurities off it, and we're doing that now. So I eventually got to it. That's a large brass or bronze bush, again, out of some large piece of machinery. That should be able to just go in our brass bin. Various little taps and things. They could possibly, oh, they look like they're actually gas valves. They might have been off an old barbecue. They'll be mostly brass, so I think they can go in our irony brass bin. Too much time to clean up these little fittings when they're all corroded. And even the doorknobs, you know, I think they might clean up okay, actually. They're not dented. Old paint, they'll buff up all right. We might clean those up. You might be surprised how well they come up. Little brass plaque off something, badly damaged. If it's in good nick, I keep those little plaques. They look kind of good, but that's just going in the brass bin. Another piece of water pipe and some fittings, and another piece of chain. So there we go. We've been through that bucket. It was pretty much all just scrap metal. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just clean it all up as I said I was going to, and I'll make little piles on the table, and we'll get the notepad out and we'll do up a few, we'll just weigh a few little piles, just so you've got a bit of an idea of the value of this sort of stuff. Sometimes it's pretty hard to appreciate what a piece of brass is worth. I mean, you know, what's that worth off the top of your head? $2 or $3 maybe? Is it worth taking that pipe out of that tap? So when you see when you see a price of a pile of brass, you get a bit of an idea of how much effort it's worth going to. See, that lump of brass is probably going to weigh close to 1 kilo, maybe a little bit under once we take the pipe off it. And at $8 a kilo, that means that piece in my hand is at least $5 worth. Now that's guessing, I will check that. But let's clean up the rest of it. We'll make a few piles, we'll get the notepad out and see how much value we got out of one little bucket of stuff in that emergency storage shed. Time to wrap this video up. We have everything processed. Coco's here with us. Coco hasn't said hi to you for a while. Coco, don't be rude, say hi. She wants me to go inside. It's time to sit on the couch, isn't it, Coco? All right, let's finish up the video so we can go in and sit on the couch. And of course, I'll be watching someone else's YouTube channel when I do that. So it cleaned up pretty well. Surprisingly, you know, I've said a few times that it's amazing every bucket or box we get in this shed, there's at least $100 worth. Well, would you believe that we might have nearly got to 100? I think we're just over it. Let's have a look why. Our number 2 copper, sorry, this is our dirty brass. I trimmed a few bits off that were easy to get to. So that's all contaminated brass that's not worth cleaning any further in my view. It just depends how much time you've got. There worked out to be 2 kilos of dirty brass. We'll check the price in a minute. A little bit of aluminium that I'm going to disregard. It wasn't worth writing down. Our number 2 copper, even though I'll probably put that with the burnt wire, it's much the same price. So we ended up with about 600 grams, 0.6 of a kilo of copper. I disregarded a few things at the back. They're just going in the shred steel, as mentioned. That's going to e-waste. and we'll forget about the double adapter because I'll do a video on those at some stage. A small pile of rubbish, so that's all that's going to be going into the bin. We have a bit of heavy melt steel, just all the bits that I took off the brass, and that worked out at around about 40 cents worth of heavy steel. So even that, I haven't written that down either, just by the way, but even that does add up. The three things we cleaned up, we'll have a look at in a minute. A big pile of brass. Look at that. There's some great bits in there. And we guessed earlier at the weight of that, I was pretty well spot on, actually. It's about 700 grams, and brass is just under $8 a kilo at the moment. So, you know, $6 or $7 there. So, well, probably 6 actually. But yeah, not bad, hey. So it's worth getting those things apart. I did break these, the insulated piece out of these. There was a bit of porcelain in there, so I still don't know exactly what they are, but they're very heavy and they're solid brass. So a good haul there, 7 kilos of brass, which works out at around about $50. So 50 bucks worth of brass, not bad indeed. The sprayer, as I mentioned, I'll take to the shop and get $10 for. I didn't clean it up really, other than just wiping a rag over it. The hammer was a nice surprise and didn't just clean up beautifully. I didn't really restore it, although I guess some people would call it restored now. I just hit the handle with a little bit of light sandpaper and just put a bit of stain on it and buffed up the head. I haven't established what sort of hammer it is, so please let me know if you do know. It is branded on top, but I can't make it out. So I don't know what it says. That's probably as good a look as I've had. So if you recognise it, let me know. And it's had virtually no work. Look, you can still see the machining to the face of the hammerhead then. So I'm not sure if it's a boilermaker's hammer or an upholsterer's hammer or a leatherworker's hammer. No idea. But it's a nice piece, and I am going to put that in the shop for $30 just because it's so unusual and it's in such good condition. And I told you the doorknobs would clean up well. They don't even look like the same ones, do they? I just buffed them up on the wire wheel, and it actually says on the shaft, if I can find it, it actually says Carpenter. So it's out of an old Carpenter door lock. Excellent condition. I've put $15 on those. So much better than dirty brass or taking the knobs off and just putting them in your normal brass bin. So look at our value. Can you believe it? Out of one bucket, what looked like absolute junk, we've got 30, 45, 55, 105, 112, 118. Add in the few little bits I didn't write down. So say $120. Just amazing, and I'm glad I found this bucket now, because going to the scrapyard Friday, all that brass will go in a bucket and go with me. So thanks for watching, guys. We've got through another week of achieving our aim of getting something out of that shed. I'm pleased with how it's coming along. It's going to be a long series, but we're getting some great value. I hope you're looking forward to the scrap run. We're going to be doing that very soon. I better go inside because I think Coco's gone to take my spot on the couch. Thanks for watching. Catch you in the next video. Bye for now.